Hello, beautiful spiritual beings. It's B from Being Blissfully Zen. Welcome back to my channel, and may you open up to your full spiritual potential now. In part one, we explored a question that many spiritually minded people wrestle with. If we know we are divine spiritual beings having a human experience, why do we still experience anxiety? We talked about how spiritual awakening does not remove our humanity. We talked about how anxiety is not a sign that we have failed spiritually. And we explored the possibility that anxiety may simply be a part of the human experience we came here to navigate. Today, I'd like to share a few of the simple practices that help me when anxiety becomes intense. Now, these are not cures and they aren't magic, but they are tools that help me return to the present moment, to reconnect with myself, and to remember the truth when fear tries to convince me otherwise. The first technique is something I call coming back to now. One thing I've noticed about anxiety is that it almost always lives in the future. It wants to know what might happen. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. This reminds me of something I learned from the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. One of the central teachings of that book is that so much of our suffering comes from leaving the present moment and becoming lost in our thoughts about the past or the future. When anxiety takes over, I often remember that teaching and gently bring myself back to now. But the present moment is usually much safer than the stories my mind is creating. When I notice anxiety building, I gently ask myself, what is actually happening right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, not 6 months from now, but right now. Often I discover that in this exact moment, I am safe. I am breathing. I'm sitting in a chair. I'm standing in my kitchen, or I'm walking outside. The moment I return my awareness to what is happening now, the intensity often begins to soften. The second technique is conscious breathing. When anxiety appears, my breathing often becomes shallow without me even realizing it. So I intentionally slow it down. I take a slow breath in through my nose, and I hold it gently for a moment. Then I slowly exhale, and I repeat. I don't try to force myself to relax. I simply allow my body to receive the message that it is safe. And sometimes I place my hand over my heart while I do this, because this simple act alone can feel incredibly comforting. The third technique is connecting with nature. Nature has a way of reminding me that life unfolds in its own time. Trees do not rush. Flowers do not force themselves to bloom. The seasons do not panic because change is coming. When I feel overwhelmed, I often step outside to watch the clouds, and to listen to the birds and feel the wind on my skin. And somehow the problems that felt so enormous begin to feel a little smaller. Nature gently reminds me that I am part of something much bigger than my current worries. The fourth technique is one of my favorites. I call it shifting from fear to trust. Another book that has influenced me is The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. This book encourages us to observe our thoughts rather than becoming consumed by them. When anxiety begins creating fearful stories, I try to step back, to become the observer, and to remember that I am not every thought that passes through my mind. When anxiety is strong, I sometimes ask myself a simple question. What if things work out? Not perfectly or exactly as I expected, but what if they work out? What if there is guidance available that I cannot yet see? What if the divine creator is already helping me navigate this situation? What if I don't need to carry the entire burden by myself? Those questions immediately shift my energy. They move me from fear towards possibility, from control towards trust, from resistance towards surrender. And the fifth technique is gratitude. Now, I know that when we're feeling anxious, gratitude can sometimes feel difficult. When our minds are focused on problems and fears and uncertainty, it's easy to overlook the blessings that are already present in our lives. But I've discovered that gratitude has a unique way of shifting my perspective. When anxiety starts pulling me into fearful thoughts, I gently pause and ask myself, what is one thing I can be grateful for right now? And sometimes it's something really simple like a warm cup of tea or a beautiful sunrise, a kind word from a friend, a comfortable bed, the ability to take a deep breath. Now, I don't force myself to create a long gratitude list. I simply focus on one thing, and then another, and then another. What I've noticed is that gratitude doesn't always remove anxiety immediately, but it does help me remember that even in difficult moments, there is still goodness present. There is love. There is still beauty. And perhaps most importantly, gratitude helps me shift my attention from what might go wrong to what is already going right. It gently brings me back into balance and reminds me that life is often far more supportive than my anxious mind would have me believe. Now, I want to be honest, these techniques do not always make anxiety disappear instantly. Sometimes they help a little. Sometimes they help a lot. And sometimes I need to repeat them several times. But that's okay. Healing is rarely linear. Growth is rarely rushed. And emotional reconnection often happens gradually, one small moment at a time. The goal is not to become someone who never feels anxious. The goal is to become someone who remembers who they are when anxiety appears. Someone who responds with compassion instead of judgment. Someone who chooses trust a little more often than fear. Someone who remembers that they are truly never alone. Because even during our most anxious moments, the Divine Creator remains present, loving us, guiding us, supporting us, and patiently waiting for us to remember. So be patient with yourself. Trust the process. Trust your journey. And most importantly, offer yourself the same compassion, understanding, and kindness that you would so freely offer someone you deeply love, because you deserve that same love too. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, comment, and consider subscribing to my channel, Being Blissfully Zen, for more spiritual awakening tips. So until next time, beautiful spiritual beings, be blissful, be Zen, and I'll see you soon.